Welcome to a new episode of the Play by Play, a sports media talk show brought to you by the fine folks here at Awful Announcing. I am Ben Axelrod. He is Drew Lerner. We are coming to you live here on opening day, opening kickoff of the 2025 NFL season. If you couldn't tell by our attire, or if you happen to be listening in audio form, I am unfortunately a Cleveland Browns fan. Drew, even more unfortunately, though, is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Kind of a quiet rivalry we have here at Awful Announcing. I think you and I kind of dance around the fact that I'm a Browns fan and you're a Steelers fan. I think probably anybody who knows me or is familiar with my work knows that I am a very pessimistic Browns fan. And so I tend to shy away from such rivalries. Drew, I actually don't know this about you. What is your relationship with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, so family team. I actually grew up outside of Baltimore, right? So I do have family members that are Ravens fans, but I was taught from an early age that we were always supposed to hate the Browns more than the Ravens. So you could imagine for me growing up a Steelers fan close to Baltimore, it was tough to not hate the Ravens as much as I hate the Browns. But I was raised right, as they say. So Ben, congratulations. Like, you are my most hated team.
I like that. I feel like that's like honoring the rivalry. I feel like that's honoring the Browns before they left Baltimore. I think when the Browns left for Baltimore, the Steelers were like the only franchise in addition to Cleveland trying to block the move, or at least the city of Cleveland. It was the Steelers in the city of Cleveland trying to block the move. So I appreciate that. I'm wearing a Joe Thomas jersey. So I'm wearing like a Mitchell and Ness throwback Hall of Famers jersey, and you're wearing a number 8 jersey. Just knowing you a little bit, I imagine that's not an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Well, I don't know why you'd say that. I'm fully on board with Aaron Rodgers as, probably a dark horse MVP pick this year. But I don't even remember any other number 8s that recently played quarterback for the Steelers anyway. So I certainly wouldn't have bought their jersey 2 or 3 years ago.
So we're going to draft NFL media storylines. We'll get to that. But I have a really big issue with Steelers fans who buy Kenny Pickett jerseys, because as a Browns fan, we had you go to a game and it's a lot of Brady Quinn jerseys. It's a lot of Braylon Edwards jerseys. It's a lot of Johnny Manziel jerseys. It's actually a lot of Shedeur Sanders jerseys, which I imagine will be spoken about in the same vein. It's a lot of Baker Mayfield jerseys. It's a lot of jerseys of players who aren't on the team anymore. And for Browns fans, that's understandable because we go through a regime change like every 2 or 3 years, it seems like. For Steelers fans, I go to a lot of Browns games. A lot of Steelers fans come to Browns games. You see so many Kenny Pickett jerseys, and I just don't understand how a franchise like you guys has outdated jerseys. Like why were people buying Kenny Pickett jerseys? If I was a Steelers fan, and a part of this is my Ohio State bias, I would have bought a Cam Hayward jersey in 2008 and not needed a new jersey for the last 15 years. What is it, the Pitt thing? I don't get why so many of you have Kenny Pickett jerseys.
First off, Ben, you have to realize, for my entire lifetime, I had one quarterback, for the team that I was rooting for. So I think there's a lot of delusion in Pittsburgh about we just drafted our next quarterback, so let's get in on the ground floor, let's get in early. For me, the timing of this jersey, it was probably I bought at the top, Ben. I bought after Kenny Pickett had his perfect QBR preseason going into his sophomore year with the Steelers. We thought this was going to be our franchise quarterback. And, obviously that didn't work out, but, I thought I was in. I was confident in this decision. I remember it vividly. I was sitting on the toilet. I was like, all right, I have the TJ Watt and the Kenny Pickett in the cart. And I was feeling, a bit of a risk taker. I was feeling confident. So I took the Kenny Pickett jersey. But luckily for me, I can reuse it now. Number 8.
I'm going to skip past the irony of you buying a Kenny Pickett jersey while sitting on the toilet and zero in on what I believe was a Freudian slip when you said JJ Watt, because we are going to have the top NFL media storylines for the 2025 NFL season. A lot going on. I mean, this is, I come from a world where you get to the off season and you write like, all right, here are the top storylines for the Browns. Here are the top storylines for the Steelers. Sports media is the same way. It's like we can do an off season's worth of NFL media storylines. And I think you can do the same entering the season. A lot to pick from, tough to narrow down the list. So we're each going to draft 3 and then we'll see how this shakes out. But Drew, since you are technically the guest today, I'm going to give you the first pick for your top storyline that you're following, that you're interested in for the 2025 NFL season.
Yeah. I guess I already let it slip out a little bit. But I think the 1-1 overall pick here has got to be JJ Watt joining Ian Eagle in CBS's number 2 booth. We got a little taste of JJ Watt in the booth last Christmas. I think he was really good. He was doing the studio stuff for the NFL Today. Obviously, he's a big name. I think CBS clearly has a lot of faith in him, going from doing one NFL game to a full season's worth, especially when, they're pushing Charles Davis to the side this season. He still doesn't have that lead college football job that he'll get next year. He's actually working on a lower CBS team this year. So I think, the vote of confidence that CBS gave JJ Watt to be their number 2 guy, we're always thinking of succession plans here at Awful Announcing when it comes to sports media. Tony Romo is still at the top of his game, obviously still very young, but he's paid a lot of money. Potentially CBS might want to move on from him at some point down the line. I don't think that's coming anytime soon, but someone like JJ Watt does have the name recognition that could fill that type of seat in the future. So I think for me, his performance this year on CBS is going to be the top NFL media storyline.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is a very strong number 1 pick. I think that it's interesting in 2 facets, right? It's interesting in how does JJ Watt do? Because I think he's one of those guys. I published a story today for Awful Announcing the current NFL players who you could see having futures in the media. JJ Watt was one of those guys, like by year 5 of his career, year 6 of his career, like you could kind of pencil in as this guy's going to be in our living rooms, like not just for the next decade as a player, but probably for the next 3 decades as probably a broadcaster and famous person. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. It's interesting. So he called the Netflix game, and that was a Steelers game. He's calling Jets Steelers. I get, like, we get it. He's TJ Watt's brother. Like, and maybe that's my Browns bias. So I'm excited after this week to get him away from the Steelers, where he can't lean on that crutch of just talking about his brother, who happens to be the Steelers' best defensive player. But it'll be interesting to see how he does. And then I think the Romo thing is the elephant in the room. I think if you look at each network's top broadcasting duo and the analysts, Collinsworth just re-signed. Brady, as long as he wants to do it, isn't going anywhere. Aikman, I think I'd argue is the best right now going. Like Aikman and Buck are not getting broken up on Monday Night Football anytime soon. You do have Herb Street in the Amazon booth, but that still doesn't really get viewed like in the same vein as the other ones. And who knows how that will shake out. But I think of the traditional ones, Romo kind of seems like he's on the shakiest footing. He does have a big deal, but his performance kind of ebbs and flows season to season. So I think if you do get into a situation where this is a down year for Romo and TJ Watt, or again, JJ Watt, God, these Watts, if he has like kind of a breakout year and is kind of the defensive minded Greg Olsen, then I think that, yeah, you're in a situation where JJ, like, Tony Romo is not infinitely more famous than JJ Watt the way that Tom Brady is infinitely more famous than Greg Olsen. It could be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of this move, maybe this is, reading the tea leaves a bit too much, or maybe I'm putting my conspiracy hat on a little bit, but I I think this move is to put a little bit of pressure on Romo, right?
Yeah.
And light a fire under his ass. I think some of the criticism, I don't know if it's warranted, I don't know if it's based in truth or not, is that Romo, the last season or two hasn't been as prepared as he was, his first few years at CBS. Maybe he's honing it in a little bit. Bringing a JJ Watt into the number 2 team is a great way to get Romo's attention and say, hey, you got your work cut out for you if you want to keep the top job. And, it's kind of that logic. If we were doing a sports media hot takes podcast, which this certainly isn't, I think Romo is going to have a bit of a resurgence this year.
Yeah, it's definitely in the cards. All right, let's get to my pick. My first pick. I am going to go with, I think this is probably the other obvious one from a talent standpoint, and that is, how does Tom Brady do in year 2? I think it was a pretty uneven first season. Definitely saw some flashes. Probably more bad than good, just in terms of the pure broadcasting. But you also get the sense, especially during Super Bowl week, that Fox is getting exactly what it wanted out of its affiliation and its association with Tom Brady. So they might be perfectly fine with him doing a fair to Midland job and being criticized by websites like Awful Announcing, as long as they get the attention that comes with Tom Brady. So I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just, how does Tom Brady do in year 2? And is he here ultimately for year 3?
Yeah. And I think it's probably going to be a storyline, however long Tom Brady goes on, right? He's the most famous person doing this. He did have a shaky first year. I think it's reasonable to expect improvement. He's obviously going to have some more access to, production meetings and things of that nature this year. That could help him out some. But yeah, I think it's Tom Brady. He's going to be a big story. A lot of times I think Fox would actually prefer this didn't happen as much, but he kind of has a way of overshadowing the game he's calling. Maybe that's just me being a media dork, but when Tom Brady is behind the microphone, you're kind of paying a little bit more attention. You're sitting up a little bit to hear what he has to say. And I think that brings more scrutiny and, more criticism to how he actually performs as a broadcaster compared to, your run of the mill analyst. So yeah, there's always going to be eyes on Brady. And I think we should hopefully see a jump this year.
All right, your second pick.
Right. Okay. I think my second pick, I'm going off the talent list and onto the business side. There are some media rights questions for the NFL going into this year. Particularly, I think the most immediate one is, as a part of this new ESPN deal, there was some kind of game swapping between the NFL Network and ESPN. And at the end of the day, the NFL has 4 leftover games next season that are currently unaccounted for. They don't belong to any broadcaster. So I think at some point this year, maybe in the offseason, we're going to see the NFL shop those games to a streamer. And I think who that streamer is going to be a big storyline going into the NFL's new media deals, coming in probably 2029 when they opt out of their current deals. Obviously, Netflix is a player. They have the Christmas games. YouTube is getting in on things this year with their Brazil game tomorrow. I think those are probably the 2 front runners because, if you're the NFL, why wouldn't you want to be in business with either of those 2 streamers? But I think this is something to monitor this year. And then also, as a side note, the NFL has the option the next 2 years to opt out of its CBS deal because of the Skydance ownership change. So that's also another avenue where media rights could come into play a bit earlier than we anticipate.
All right. I think you just took 4 storylines with one pick, though. I think we've got to narrow that. So for you, it's what is the NFL?
Games,
what are they going to do with the 4 games?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was my entire list. You just ran through.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Well, so I'll dovetail off that because I think there are a lot of interesting things, and that's probably the overarching how do they find that partnership? The partnership is now they have those 4 games. They somehow the NFL, it's funny, we make a big deal out of all these media rights deals, And then just the NFL year after year is like, actually, we're going to carve out this little package for Netflix. Actually, we're giving YouTube. It's like, wait. We wrote this up and that's not what the deal looked like. I'm going to go with YouTube because they're the new one. So mine's going to be the YouTube NFL relationship, which kicks off.
That's also on my board
on Friday night with Chargers Chiefs in Brazil. This is a new partner for the NFL. Obviously, there is the YouTube TV element with Sunday Ticket, so it's not a totally new one. But to add YouTube to the mix, which is quietly like the biggest media platform in the world, is massive. And so for the NFL to just have a free over-the-air game on YouTube, what does that look like? How does it perform? And what does it mean for their relationship moving forward? You saw Roger Goodell at the Google upfronts this past year, along with Netflix. And so the fact that that relationship is growing, that you do have a looming media rights deal in 2029 that you would imagine is going to be much more streaming heavy than this current rights deal, at least in some form. What does that look like? I think that's my pick because I think that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. And how incredible would it be? I feel like all we can talk about right now as NFL fans is, how many subscription services you need to watch all the games, how much money it costs to watch a full season of NFL games. How incredible would it be for the NFL to strike like a longer term deal with YouTube, like with a bigger package where all the games are just free on YouTube? I think that's like a true possibility here when we get into the NFL's next set of deals, because I think the NFL, the way they view themselves, they already see themselves as giving a lot of their inventory away for free over the air. Like they see any game that they air on CBS or Fox or NBC as something that's really highly accessible for the fan. I think YouTube is the new version of that. It's the new version of broadcast. Everyone has access to it as long as you have an internet connection. It's great for mobile devices. You don't need an app. You don't need an antenna. You don't need a cable subscription. When like the NFL has always valued reach over anything, and YouTube is the best way to reach fans in the modern day. So, I think they could get a lot of goodwill, honestly, by doing a deal with YouTube, and I think it's probably more likely than people might think.
A lot of goodwill and a lot of money. That's that sounds like the best of both worlds, probably for both the NFL and fans. All right, your third pick.
Third pick. I'm kind of between two here, but I'll go with how ESPN is going to cover the NFL now that this deal has been announced. We've heard plenty of talk about how their editorial is not going to change because they're getting into a business relationship. Well, further into a business relationship with the NFL, with the NFL taking a 10% stake probably next year or the year after. But I think most reasonable people would agree we're probably going to see some level of change in how ESPN covers the league. I don't think it'll be major. I think there's still going to be investigative reporting to the small level that there is right now. They're still going to talk about controversial issues, but I think what we're going to see is just kind of a more promotional tone, and just even larger emphasis on NFL coverage across their daily programming. And who knows if it'll look different 5 years from now when we're 3 years into this deal or whatever. But I think slowly but surely we're going to see a shift into ESPN kind of covering the league in a very favorable light.
Yeah, I mean, how could they not? I think is probably the question I would ask, and that's I've seen a bunch of quotes. I talked to Kyle Brandt about this at the NFL Network. I know Rich Eisen talked to our Brandon Contes on the Awful Announcing podcast about this, and they're both two people who have worked for the NFL Network, and they said, I've never been called into the office. I've never been told don't say this, don't say that. And that's, I believe them and that makes perfect sense, but that's not necessarily like all that could change. It's you even see it now. Everything just feels so much more NFL promotional for ESPN, and they were already kind of trending that way. I mean, we know ESPN is ultimately the stir that straws, or the NFL is the straw that stirs the drink for ESPN and for sports media coverage at large. But it is going to be fascinating, even in this will bring us to my third and final pick here. But like even the way McAfee discusses the Red Zone deal and the fact that he can discuss commercials being added to Red Zone and immediately faces backlash being accused of being an ESPN shill and Disney shill because he's seemingly downplaying it. I think stuff like that all just it's not even that that's the reason it's happening, but it just shines a brighter light on that and does cause you to question what's going on behind the scenes. I think that's a great pick. That's a great value pick for this point in the draft.
Thank you. And let's be real. Like ESPN isn't the only one dealing with this. Like having the NFL on like Fox and on CBS, like that's existential to their like network's ability to like function financially. So like it's not as if they're in a place where they can be independent editorially either, right? Like they're still going to, be very favorable and promotional about the NFL too. It's just, they're not in a direct equity relationship with the NFL like ESPN very well could be in a year's time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings me to my third. Well, it was going to be, is Taylor Swift going to do the halftime show? Because I think there is like a huge, like Roger Goodell was kind of hinting at it on the Today Show. And obviously she dropped some pretty blatant sourdough flavored breadcrumbs during her appearance on New Heights. But we have to talk about ESPN, not ESPN. Actually, we don't have to talk about ESPN because we're talking about Red Zone adding commercials. And this was something so this is my third pick, is Red Zone adding commercials. This was something that came out earlier this week when Scott Hansen was on the Pat McAfee show, like I referenced. And then it came out just before you and I went live. What are the details of what these commercials are going to look like in week one?
Yeah. So at least for week one, it's going to be quite limited, right? Over the 7-hour broadcast, there's going to be 4 15-second ads. So that adds up, if you're able to do math in your head, to 1 minute of commercials during the 7-hour broadcast, which based on the level of outrage I saw on social media yesterday, it seems like a bit of an overreaction. Now, Front Office Sports was first with this report. They did mention that this is subject to change. Like the NFL could go and add more commercials into Red Zone, later on in the season. But at least for week one, there's going to be 1 minute of ads for 7 hours. The ads aren't even going to take up the full screen. It's going to be side by side. You're going to see Red Zone during the ads. So it's going to be very minimally invasive, you could say. But, it is a premium product and people pay for Red Zone. There's been an expectation of commercial-free football ever since it's been a product, been a TV show. So, the fact that they're putting in ads is notable.
Yeah. And I get the frustration in terms of you're already paying for it and now you have ads, but like I pay for the ads tier of Netflix. I pay for the ads tier of Peacock. It's like there is that's part of the game now. And so I wonder if they're leaving money on the table, not offering a no ads tier, because I think you'd get more people paying more money to avoid what's ultimately like 2 minutes worth of commercial. I don't know. And especially
hey, that's probably coming.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I also think I think you and I are a little bit aligned on this, that it's being overblown. And a part of it, why I think it's overblown, is ads were coming once it got to ESPN. I know that ESPN has nothing to do with this decision. And that's been the big joke about all of this. But like once it was going on that ESPN streaming service, which ESPN is ultimately viewing as like, you're getting access to ESPN. There's still commercials on this app, but you're getting access to ESPN. There were going to be commercials on it regardless. So I almost wonder if, I think ESPN is probably thrilled that the NFL is taking the bullet on this one, because I think this decision was coming next season or the season after regardless.
Right. It is, I think the other reason it's overblown is like you would think way more people actually watch Red Zone than they do. I'm pretty sure like it's low single digit millions that tune into Red Zone every week, which if you compare it to just like, your normal like 4 p.m. window on Fox or CBS, like it's like 10% of the amount of people that would watch a normal game broadcast. So we're talking about a small portion of NFL fans here that are now have to sit through 60 seconds of ads over their 7-hour broadcast. I'm sorry if my sympathy isn't really there.
I'll tell you the other secret about Red Zone is it's all degenerate gamblers and it's all fantasy football enthusiasts. And we're all just staring at our phones anyways. None of us are actually watching what's on the screen. All of us are checking the in-game betting. All of us are checking to see if somebody scored who's not currently on the screen or what's going on or why Bijan Robinson only has 2 points. Like it is all degenerate gamblers. Nobody is looking at the screen anyways. None of us even noticed that they did those LRAP ads last year until Awful Announcing wrote it up. So shame on Awful Announcing for calling attention to just good, clean.
Yeah. Pat on the back for that one.
All right. Wrapping up our draft here. You, Drew Lerner, you have JJ Watt in his first season for CBS. You have what are ESPN and NFL going to do with those 4 extra games that they have to sell? And what is going to happen with ESPN's coverage of the league now that they are at least in agreement on a partnership? I have Tom Brady's second season for Fox. I have the Google NFL relationship and where it goes from here. I have the Red Zone adding commercials or keeping commercials as a continuation from some experimenting last year.
I'm really upset that I didn't think of the Taylor Swift thing. I think I would have taken that third.
That's a good one. All right. We're not going to do traditional hot mics real quick before we get out of here. Steelers over under 8.5 wins. Is this the year that Mike Tomlin finally goes under?
No, cash the over, baby. He could drag me at starting quarterback to 9 wins. So that's an auto bet.
Yeah, as evidenced by the jersey you're wearing. I will take the under, as I am wont to do, on the Cleveland Browns at 4.5. I think when you see the GM and owner making a big show of scouting every quarterback in the nation during the opening weekend of college football, I think that shows you where their mindset is at, and it's where my mindset is at as well. So we are in agreement there for once. So that's going to do it for this week's slate of episodes of the Play-by-Play, unless any news breaks, in which we will hop on here, do a little live reaction, but that's going to do it for today's episode, at least. He is Drew Lerner. I am Ben Axelrod. Like, subscribe, rate, tell a friend, tell an enemy, leave a review. We appreciate it all. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you next week, breaking down all the latest in sports media.